Hi, I'm Shane Coolwell, and this is Samantha Fulham, my co-host, and we're here today with Kathi Cozzone, who is the current commissioner of Chester County, and she's running for lieutenant governor this year. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you for coming all the way and just to hang out at my house and drink some coffee.
I'll go almost anywhere for coffee.
Right?
It's my thing. It's my thing.
Glad to have you over for a cup of coffee. So our standard question that we ask everyone is, what does being a Democrat mean to you?
So, I think it's about freedom and it's about choice. I think it's about women having the freedom to do what they want to do, not just with their bodies, but as a career choice.
Yeah.
Being able to advance in a society, being equal. I think it's the freedom to love who you choose. Love is love, and we should not be standing in the way of the choices that people make for themselves. I think it's about the freedom for all people to be equal. So whether you are a minority or someone who's disabled, that you have the same choices as everyone else and are treated as equally as everyone else. So in very general terms, I think that's what it's about.
Equal opportunity for everybody, no matter who you are or who you love.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a Chester County Commissioner. I'm serving in my third term. I was sworn in 2008. I've been really, really honored to serve the citizens of Chester County. Governing is a very unique experience, and it can be really, really rewarding. So I've had the opportunity to do a lot of different things in the county that coincide with what counties do, but also are a little bit outside the box. So whether it's criminal justice issues or workforce development or environmental issues, sort of taking a lead and trying to work on specific projects within those. And I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk about them a little later on. But just about me personally, I live in the Exton area, which is actually not really a town. It's a post office. My township is Euclid. I'm married. I have a 15-year-old son who is a sophomore in high school. And we'll be driving soon, which is kind of scary. We have one dog and two cats. So we have a little bit of a zoo, but it's my love zoo.
No, I totally understand. You can't have just one.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
no.
You gotta have at least two furry friends in your house.
We have three.
Yeah, so you're going the extra mile. We're trying to expand our family too. I should put a plug in. We're looking for a mate for Zoe. Everyone. It's surprised that we haven't found one yet, but that's besides the point.
So anyway, that's just an overview.
Yeah, awesome. So when did you become politically active?
So I'd always been politically engaged, and I think there's a difference between being engaged and being active. And interestingly, in 2005, my husband was doing some work on a project with a sitting county commissioner, and they asked me to run for county controller. So I'm an accountant by background or profession.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really funny and said no. But long story short, they talked me into it, and I nearly won the race. Now, up until this past year, where the Democrats won 4 row office seats in Chester County, no Democrat had even come close to winning. But I did. I got over 48% of the vote in 2005.
So it was a really tight race.
So it was, and it was the first time, and up until last year, the last time that had happened. But I just, I started to really enjoy the opportunity to do more than be engaged, but to be active, and to try to make a difference, to change things that I didn't like, that were sort of outside of but outside of voting or making sure I understood the issues and who the candidates were. And having come so close to winning, I felt like, people must think that I have something to offer.
Yeah,
so when
like
the opportunity,
yeah.
when the opportunity presented itself to run for commissioner in 2007, I did. So here I am.
That's awesome.
It's one big adventure, right?
If somebody had said to me, when you're, in 2008, because I won't give away my age, in 2008, you will be elected, a countywide official, I would have said, what?
You're crazy.
You probably would have said the same thing a year ago.
Yeah.
It just sort of happens.
Well, sometimes you have to just go where life leads you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's the opportunity to serve your community or your
Right.
state, it's just even more rewarding.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what are some of your accomplishments as county commissioner?
So I'll talk a little bit about some of the things I mentioned earlier. So we'll start with workforce development, which now that the economy is turning around a little bit, isn't getting quite as much attention as it was during the recession. But what happened was that, as you know, a lot of people lost their jobs. And a lot of them were people who'd been at companies for a very long time.
Yeah.
And so it had been a really long time since they wrote a resume or had an interview or even looked for a job with all of the new technology and the websites and all of the other new ways to do that existed. And traditional programs had generally helped people who either needed to improve their skills or maybe get, maybe a GED or people who were living in poverty, and those were all great programs that should be continued. But what we didn't have were some of those programs for people who had a little more education, had a job for a very long time and didn't understand or know how to find a job anymore.
Yeah.
It was a whole new process.
It's
from
kind
what
of
they
like
had
marketing
remembered.
yourself, really.
And
like,
it was very different from the last time. So I worked very hard with our workforce development board to sort of improve upon and to increase some of the programs that we had for people that fell into that category. And now we're investing some of those resources, in particular in trying to help people who are long-term unemployed get back to work. And while that may not make some sense for people who might be in your audience, there is a lot of discrimination about people over 50. So still some of those folks who lost their jobs in the recession are over 50. They're not getting interviews. They've lost a lot of self-esteem. They might be having some financial issues. So we brought a program to our county called Platform to Employment that addresses all of those issues.
That is awesome.
So and it's been a pretty successful program. We're really proud of it. It was a program started in Connecticut. I always say if somebody's doing something well, we should find a way to replicate it instead of reinvent the wheel. So the other thing is, more recently, in the last several years, I've been very involved in criminal justice reform from the perspective of there are too many people in our jails who have mental illness, who have committed nonviolent crimes. With the closure of the state institutions, which, by the way, was the absolute right thing to do because people were being mistreated. They were supposed to be able to get those supports in their home. And for some people, that's not enough. So there are limited forensic beds, so there's no place to put somebody who's seriously mentally ill, who's committed a crime, in a situation where they can pay their debt as well as seek the help that they need. And then there are other people who end up in jail because they have a mental illness, because maybe they stopped taking their meds and they disturb the peace, or non-violent, non-serious crimes. Jail is the most expensive way to treat somebody with a mental illness, and frankly, it's not the right way. We as a society can do much better, and when we treat people who have an intellectual disability or a mental illness or even a drug addiction in the community and provide them with the right supports and services so they don't recidivate, they don't end up back in jail, it's good for public safety, it's good for our communities. So I've been part of a statewide effort to help counties understand the kinds of programs that they can implement to be able to address those issues. We've been addressing them locally. Part of the problem is there's not enough financial resources that comes from the state to always be able to effectively do those things. So we're working, commissioners around the state are working together and in conjunction with the Commonwealth to hopefully find some better solutions than what we have available to us. And then finally, on the environmental side, there has been a lot of activity with the Marcellus Shale and natural gas, and with that comes they have to be able to get their product to market. And so where I live in Chester County, we are pipeline central. Chester County is 730 some odd square miles. We have over 600 miles of pipeline in the county. Some of you might have heard about a little pipeline called Mariner East, which is traversing, I think, 15 or 16 counties across the Commonwealth. And in fact, while I've been involved in this issue for a long time, because Mariner is not the first pipeline to be built since the Marcellus boom, it is goes right through some very densely populated areas, including, by the way, my own development. Doesn't go through my property, but so the point I'm making is I try to put that out there because I'm not involved in this just because it's in my community. I've been working on this for 9 or 10 years now, but the one that's got all the headlines at the moment is the Mariner project. But what we did was we worked with a local group, the Pipeline Safety Coalition. We created a pipeline information center. So through our planning department, we have a pipeline point of contact, and you can call her and ask her any question, provide her with information. We provide facts. So facts for the operators, facts for the citizens. I was the chair of the county government work group for the governor's pipeline infrastructure task force, and we made a number of recommendations along with the other groups about ways that Pennsylvania can work to improve the safety and environmental concerns related to pipeline infrastructure. So we have a long way to go in Pennsylvania to deal with that. It's in part because it's a very complex and complicated legislative bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Depending on what the pipeline is, where it's traveling to, what's going through it, and that shouldn't be, particularly because it becomes a community issue. So I've been working an awful lot on that issue. So those are the three areas that I've been sort of focused on in addition to my regular.
Those are huge things.
So what made you decide to run for lieutenant governor?
So I've watched for 10 years as the majority in the state legislature has systemically really decimated funding to counties for services that in most instances we are mandated to provide. Yeah. So, a long time ago, counties agreed to be the provider of certain services on behalf of the state, and frankly, we are the best place to do it. In Pennsylvania, our municipalities are too small and the state's too big, so there's really a really good reason for counties to do these things, like take care of abused kids and senior citizens in our community and people with mental illness and intellectual disabilities, provide the court system, probation services, and the list goes on. And a lot of those we're using effective programs to address things like that we talked about before, like criminal justice reform and the like. So I realized, particularly in the last session, when some of the budget proposals that came out of the majority in the legislature would have been so incredibly devastating to counties that clearly people don't understand. Some of the proposals they made, I actually said to some of the legislators, like, you're just playing whack-a-mole. Like, you're cutting it here so that you have to spend it over here. And then while you're telling people that you're not raising taxes, you are raising taxes, because counties across the Commonwealth are going to have to make some really hard decisions about the people that they serve and how they're going to pay for it, because our only source of revenue for our general fund, outside of the fees that we collect for various services, is property taxes. So when we want to talk about real property tax reform, we have to understand that there's a lot that gets pushed down onto county government to pay for, where the funding's not coming from the state. So I feel very, very strongly that the executive branch of the government needs somebody at the table who understands how county government, local government works, and can help people understand how the decisions that they're trying to make or they're looking to make are going to impact county government and the provision of services.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was why I decided. I also think it's why I'm the best candidate to be lieutenant governor, because I have been an executive in county government for the last 10 years. There's a difference between legislating and governing, and legislating is a very important role, and I have a great deal of respect for the people who legislate. But those of us who have been governing actually have done the provision of services, and so we understand that complex relationship between the funder, which in many cases is the state, and how services are provided.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like you kind of just touched on this, but what is one issue that you would change if elected?
Well, let's start there. So look, I mean, the reality is that to answer your question specifically, I would have to suggest to you that the lieutenant governor has the ability to make a change.
Yeah.
And I would say that I believe that being a leader means going beyond your job description. So I think that allows somebody in that role to be able to really, really advocate for things that are important in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And so by advocating for counties, you are advocating for people who, for abused kids, for senior citizens, whether they are just alone and need some help for health issues, or whether they themselves are being abused. People with mental health issues, intellectual disabilities, our court system providing elections, counties provide elections, providing 911. When you call 911, you're calling a county function. So I think that that it would be important to be that voice, to make sure that the legislature understood how those things worked so that they could make more informed decisions. To be able to, I think that there are a lot of programs that are happening in the state, been happening for a while, that are really good. Secretary Wetzel has been working on criminal justice reform for a very long time. But I would like to see the lieutenant governor be in a position to be able to bring some of these departments together. To be able to, because a lot of those issues don't touch just one group, right? So I was at an event today, and with some of the cabinet, some of Governor Wolf's cabinet was there, and somebody asked a question about opioids in schools, and the Secretary of Education answered, and the Secretary of Health answered. Really great answers, really great ideas. But I stood up and I said, well, but here's the thing. We have this Pennsylvania Youth Survey that gets done every other year, which already identifies the risks and protective factors for kids in our schools. So while we're making investments in prevention, as we talk about the opioid issue, let's remember to make perhaps stronger investments in programs that already exist. And ways that, maybe we can improve them. So I think that there are those things that we as county executives see the sort of across the board, how all these things interrelate with each other. And so I think someone who sits as part of the executive team could really bring that perspective to the table.
Bring everyone together kind of, and
Unified. So how would you lead differently than our current Lieutenant Governor, Mike Stack?
I said earlier, leading is more than the job description. And I think that there are a lot of opportunities to do, to address a lot of challenges and a lot of issues when you have that role. So for me, it's just about, I think that I bring a lot to the table and I can do it better.
Simple as that, right?
It's that simple.
What is one piece of advice that you would offer younger generations?
That's my
probably not much different than the advice my grandmother gave me. I think, we all sort of, technically I'm a baby boomer, but I mean, I was born in 62, so I just gave away my age. But, but I don't know that I consider myself a baby boomer. But here's the thing. I think that young people have to be open to things that come at you in life. I would not be where I am today if I hadn't have been open. And mind you, I had to be pride open. But if I hadn't have been open to exploring something new. And I also think it's important to find something that you love and do that. And if that can't be your job, because we cannot all find our dream job, right?
Gotta pay the bills.
And find a hobby or volunteer work or something else that makes you, that makes you happy. I think it's up to us to create those situations that make us happy, and we have to be open to it, and we have to be willing to choose it, because it's not going to just come to us.
Yeah, you have to look for it.
So, we have to make it.
Well, yeah, you know it, exactly.
We have to make it.
Yeah, or just create it.
At least that's what I tell my 15-year-old. We'll see how it works.
That's good advice.
That's great advice. And like you said, it's timeless. Just find what makes you happy and just go all in.
Right.
So, who is someone that inspired you to take this path of leadership in life?
I don't think that there is a someone. I think there are
I like
lots.
this answer already.
I think there are lots of someones.
Yeah.
I was very lucky. In fact, I was talking with someone today. Being a woman in corporate America when I started working was not the easiest thing on the planet.
Yeah.
But I was pretty lucky in that for most of my career, most of my bosses happen to be men. But most of them were, maybe because a lot of them had daughters, I don't know, but they were very supportive of, of me and the other people that work for them, doing our best and trying to advance and trying to succeed. I had one boss, I guess, if I had to pick someone very early on in my career who just kind of taught me to, you manage up the same way you manage down.
Yeah.
And if you can do that and treat people with respect, so I don't know. I think that's kind of a leadership skill. Sort of how to manage people that work for you and to be able to empower them. He was never afraid to see anybody who worked for him, man or woman, succeed or get a promotion or something like that. So, if I was forced to pick one person, it might be him. But I've encountered so many amazing people in my life that I've learned a little something from.
Yeah.
That brought me kind of where I am today. So I think that's important. I think it's important for, I think maybe when I was younger, college, or high school, you have all these friends, and then college you have all these friends, and then you get older and you feel bad because you don't talk to those people anymore.
Yeah, no.
But I always feel like people come into your life for a reason.
Yeah.
Some stay for a season. That's not the saying goes.
And it doesn't mean that I don't still love them, and I wouldn't love to see them, but I think that we learn something from everybody we encounter along our journey.
We're like little puzzles that are never completely, finished.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to get involved in your campaign, how can they help out?
Well, so our website is Cozzone, FORPA.com.
Okay.
Which I think is pretty easy, but I will spell my name. It's COZZ, two Z's as in zebra, O, N as in Nancy, E, FORPA.com.
Okay, and we'll put a link too.
That would be great.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sitting on the couch with us.
I enjoyed it, and coffee was great.